All right, let's go receiver right now. I think this is tough. Always a lot of receivers to choose from here. Who did you go as your number one?
It is tough. I think it's harder than it's been previous years. Where some years I think there's clearly like a best wide receiver in the NFL or a best, top two. I think the number is a bit broader this year. I would argue there's a clear four, maybe five top wide receivers in the NFL.
Can I
I ended
just
up going with Jamar Chase as the best kind of composite of the group. And the more I watched them, the more I started going through some tape, the less I like that. I think I might go in a different direction right now. But Chase has just he's got that size, speed. The thing, like his real superpower is he's got that effortless ability to shed contact and all the way through the route, whether it's a jam at the line of scrimmage. There was a play against Washington last year where Benjamin St-Juste, of all people, actually does a really good job jamming him at the line. And 10 yards into the route, he looks blanketed. It's like he's got hands all over him. He stopped the release, and down the sideline, it looks like a large corner like St-Juste. Like this is a winning rep. And then I still don't know how he did it, but Chase just gets rid of the contact. And by the time the ball arrives, he's got like 1.5 yards of separation, and it's a big play. I'm like, I don't know how he did that. I watched that play like 15 times and couldn't work out what he did to go from he's in trouble on this rep to actually he's just torched Benjamin St-Juste for a big play. But he does that all the time. And he's so good after the catch. He's like strong, powerful. Unlike Justin Jefferson, I think he does actually, ironically, I think he does a better job of kind of varying the pace of his routes. Like Jefferson does a really good job of head fakes and sort of sending a guy in the wrong direction. Chase does a really good job of like slowing down his pace and then exploding past the guy just when they think actually it's a chill rep. He's really, really good at that. But like, they're two very different players, but they're both insanely dynamic.
is that who you were debating between Chase and Jefferson?
Those are the two obvious ones. I also think AJ Brown deserves a piece of the conversation. I think Nico Collins deserves a piece of the conversation. And he's the guy I think that most people would not put in there. The more I watched of Nico Collins tape, the more I think he's actually a lot more, he's a lot better at the things that people don't expect him to be good at than, like everyone thinks of Nico Collins. There's a play against the Colts, right, where they just heave it downfield and it's like in a double coverage and Nico Collins just goes up and beats two DBs for it. That's the type of play you think of when you think of Nico Collins. And he isn't as explosive off the line as certainly Jefferson and Chase and maybe a couple of other guys. But he's so much more nuanced than I thought he was as a route runner. He's incredibly quick to adjust. Like when the scramble drill happens, which obviously happened quite a lot for the Texans last year, he's insanely quick to read that and start heading to the right place. His route running is way more nuanced than I gave him credit for. I think Nico Collins is actually a way better receiver than like the production is not a fluke. It's not just a product of, hey, you've got a really big, fast guy, start heaving the ball at him. Like he's earning an awful lot of those targets with some really good heady play, like some really good smarts.
He's a good next player option, in that mix for who could be number one, Nico Collins. I'm going Justin Jefferson on this. I think it is close between him and Jamar Chase. Receivers always, if you're just going to look at production, it's always going to be dependent on quarterback and situation and everything. But I think what makes Jefferson special, and AJ Brown is in this conversation, is the fact that the production's always there, no matter who the quarterback is. If you said, hey, going into the season, he has Sam Darnold and Jamar Chase has Joe Burrow, who's going to produce more? Well, Jamar Chase did. He had Burrow, but we're talking about, was Darnold a one-year wonder because he had Jefferson there? And then you add, I think, the way Kevin O'Connell uses Justin Jefferson, moves him around, and just opens up everything else. I mean, all of these guys open up things for other players. I think Chase, one of the more impressive things about Chase is when he kind of converted from pure deep threat early on to then he's going to be a high volume, move it around type of guy. And he was still productive, but it didn't feel as good with Chase, but he could do it all. I think he showed he could do it all, right? He could play the high end possession game, and this big play receiver. And the other thing that you and I kept saying about Chase through the years, not that he's sneaky fast, but his speed always seems to sneak up on the rest of the NFL, whether it's after the catch, whether it's down the field. Chase always plays faster, I think, than he feels. But then I think when you add Jefferson, the fact that Jefferson over the course of his career across multiple quarterbacks has averaged 15 yards per catch, that's a huge number in today's NFL. 15 yards per catch. Used to have a lot more guys averaging that much. But Jefferson's been able to do that with his slick route running, with moving around. He has the contested catch ability, some of the free catches that he's made as well. I just think he's the best. I just think he's the top guy by like a smidge over Chase. And AJ Brown's not just an. Go ahead, I'll let you respond to Jefferson here.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, he's not a blazing fast guy. Like, he's fast. What did he run? Like a 4.4 flat-ish, something like that. So he's not like a 4.2, 4.3 guy. But the thing that Jefferson does, I think, really, really well is like he eats up a vertical cushion every single time. He terrifies corners. When you start looking at the tape, whether it's from the slot or whether it's out wide, like he, over the first 10 yards, gets so much vertical distance that DBs are put in real trouble really quickly. And then he can exploit that to either take it deep with route running. He's really good at those head fakes, sending guys in different directions, or those in-breaking routes, those deep digs over the middle. Like, he gets so much separation because those guys are on skates because of how much vertical movement he gets right off the snap. And ironically, like, if you were picturing the two, you would imagine that was the thing that Chase would be better at. But actually, I think Jefferson is that. Where I think
Chase is more of a late separator, right? Or he accelerates late, but he also knows how to separate late using his hands, using everything.
Well, where I'm starting to think that the sort of sneaky, deceptive element of Chase's speed is, I think it's because it's part of that thing I talked about before, where it's like how much he varies the pace of his routes. But I think it's also when he goes from gear to gear, it looks easy. Like, he doesn't, some guys, when they get to the acceleration phase, like, you can see how much effort they're putting into it. It's like quarterbacks, right? Like, Ryan Fitzpatrick and Baker Mayfield are in the same category of every throw they make looks like it's hard, right? I think this is why some people think Baker Mayfield doesn't have a good arm, because it looks like he's trying, even though that's producing like an insanely powerful throw. So whether it's hard for him or it isn't, like, the end result is that's a howitzer. But it looks harder than some quarterbacks that are able to just sort of flick the ball, and it doesn't look like they're putting much effort into it. And that's where they get their power from. Some players, when they're like really working at accelerating or running fast, like, it looks like they're putting effort into it. Jefferson looks like he's running fast when he's running fast. Whereas when Chase goes from gear to gear and hits the accelerator, it barely registers. Like, you don't even notice he's doing it. You just suddenly realize, oh, he's just blown past a dude that was in phase with him a second ago. He must have like hit the jets. I think that's the thing that's so deceptive about him, is it's very difficult to work out when he's mashed his foot on the gas, but when it happens, it's insanely effective.
So you said you were kind of regretting Chase at the end after watching the film. So would you have put Jefferson here?
I don't know. I think, as I said, I think those two are the obvious two. I think Nico Collins deserves to be in the conversation as well. I think AJ Brown does as well. AJ Brown is just like, he's almost a classic throwback receiver where he's just so big and so fast that's his superpower. Like, he's physically so much more imposing than almost everybody he's going up against, and that's incredibly difficult to stop.
Hey guys, just taking a quick break to tell you, hey, just over 50% of you are still unsubscribed to Check the Mic. It helps the channel. It helps to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows. So if you have a chance, hit the subscribe button right now. Yeah, so AJ Brown is very much in the conversation for me. I think we're talking top tier receivers. He's absolutely right in there with Justin Jefferson and AJ Brown. I mean, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. But AJ Brown, so I said Justin Jefferson has been QB proof from what we've seen, right? These are all small sample sizes, but he went through from Kirk Cousins to the revolving door of 2023 to Sam Darnold last year. Production's always there. Jamar Chase has had the benefit of having Joe Burrow and doing it through multiple roles. AJ Brown has elevated a Titans offense, and his presence coincided with career years for Ryan Tannehill. And I think, you could say, well, that was Derrick Henry, that was the run game, that was Arthur Smith. I think AJ Brown was the biggest driver there. And then immediately goes to the Eagles, and Jalen Hurts looks like a completely different quarterback from a production standpoint. And we never got to see, we don't get to see a whole lot of Jalen Hurts without AJ Brown right now. But he has elevated two offenses, helped bring the Titans to an AFC championship with a, run first team, but a very efficient pass game, and the Eagles going to 2 Super Bowls and winning one. And I think he's huge there. And his production, I don't think will ever match the other guys, because he doesn't need to, because they're going to run the ball a little bit more in Philadelphia, because he does have a Devontae Smith on the other side. And Hurts just isn't a high volume passer. It's not the way the Eagles play. But I think AJ Brown is an absolute game changer. If we were doing this a year ago, Tyreek Hill would have been on the list,
Right.
but he didn't look the same last year. And when you were saying, hey, there's always a clear number one wide receiver in the NFL, I was just thinking back to the last 15 years or so. I think there was a good, healthy debate between Julio Jones and Antonio Brown for a period of time. I think there was a point where DeAndre Hopkins took over, a point where Devontae Adams took over. But when it was Hopkins and Adams, Tyreek Hill was the guy that I would want. If we were starting a team for about a 5-year stretch, it was Tyreek Hill. And if he did completely lose a step last year and that's over, fine. But if he's back, if he's fast again and healthy, he's on this list. And still could be, like, if this was 2 years ago, he's number one for me, because I still think Tyreek Hill is the scariest deep threat in the NFL. We were joking. Our friend Anthony Tresh a couple of years ago, when he was writing for PFF, said best deep threat of all time, and everybody's like, kid, you haven't seen enough. I mean, he's in there. He's in that Randy Moss. He's in that best Don Hudson conversation, Sam. But then he's in the conversation at least. And then the fact that I think he could catch 150 balls if you just made him a slot receiver. Tyreek Hill's in this conversation if he's healthy, but he's at the point in his career where he just might get nicked up too much and may never be able to bounce back to where he was.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he didn't look the same physically last year. And for a guy who, it's not like that's all he brought to the table, but his production, his effectiveness was so predicated on being the most physically impressive player in the NFL. I doubt that comes back. You're right. If it does, then he's in the conversation, definitely. The player that I would be more interested in whether he bounces back is Devontae Adams, because his skill was always based off being a technician. A, he still has that. We saw that last year with the Jets. B, he's now going to a destination in the Rams where he's got the quarterback, he's got the coach, he's got Puka Nacua on the other side, and we should at least mention Puka Nacua as well as a guy that could be in this conversation. But I think the stage is set actually for Devontae Adams to have a bounce back season if he has that within him at his age, because he used to be, the best wide receiver in the NFL. And then I guess one other name that should probably be brought up is CeeDee Lamb, who's got a lot of these skills as well. The one interesting thing, by the way, when you're going through all these guys, Jefferson, Chase, AJ Brown, all these top, Nico Collins, the common thread throughout all of them is how incredibly good they are at coming back to the quarterback. And even if it's only the last step before the ball arrives, like a half movement right at the end, they are all so good at working their way back to the quarterback. Like the number of passes that would not be complete if they didn't make that little movement back to the quarterback is nuts. And to the point where it almost made me, like, watching all these guys sequentially, number one, it made you sort of realize that's a big part of the difference between some of these guys in the NFL and the college game. But number two, it makes you realize how important that is. Like, obviously it's something the coaches harp on at, and, we know is important. But it's only when you start stringing it back to back to back to back and you watch them all, and you're like, these guys are all amazingly good at this.
When receivers don't do it well, it really sticks out. It really sticks out. And years of every time a quarterback throws a pick six and it looks awful, a lot of the time you can go look at the receiver and say they didn't work back to the ball well enough. So my internet should be great over here. What's going on? You guys have been glitching this entire time on StreamYard. I'm here. We're back.
Yeah, there it is.
All right. So,
by the way,
go ahead.
One thing about Jefferson's route running in particular, Jerry Rice used to say, like, his quest was to make every route look the same, off the line. I mean, look, Jerry Rice, the greatest of all time. It's hard to disagree with Jerry Rice when he says anything, but I certainly in today's NFL, I just don't think that that's the case. Like, you're not the routes are so predicated off like down and distance, situation, split from the line, all these kinds of things. Like, immediately you're clearly not running the same route as the last play because of the alignment, because of the distribution of the defense, because of the down and distance, all these kinds of things. So I don't think it makes any sense essentially to say the deep post I'm running right now should look the same off the line as like the 5-yard out we were running on the last play, because already it's not going to, based off how you're lined up and all those kinds of things. But I think what you really should be trying to do is what Jefferson is incredibly good at, which is just make it look like something else, right? Make the DB think you're running, like make them think they know what it is that you're running, and then immediately turn that into something completely different. There was a play where it was a scramble drill. I forget who it was against. Scramble drill in the end zone, where immediately you see a lot of times in the back of the end zone, like a receiver was running like a corner route, play breaks down, and you see them reverse course, right? And that's when they spring open. But the DB knows you're doing that. So if he's able to at least stay with that first move, he can basically, tackle you in that plaster defense and take you out of the play. So what Jefferson did is he made that initial move, and then immediately it was a one-step move, and then he bounced right back to the corner again, and it gained him like the DB basically fell over. Like, he's like, oh, I know what he's doing. Tried to go with him, and then when he made the move back, immediately falls over. Jefferson's just able to walk to the pylon and like wave for 5 seconds until the ball arrived and got himself a touchdown. He is so good at being like, it doesn't matter what the release looks like. It just matters that I can make him think the route is something completely different to what it is, because that's when he's going to commit the hardest to the fake, to the thing that isn't what we're actually running.
Yeah, so I have Jefferson. You have Chase. I'd say receiver is probably the healthiest debate if you're just choosing a number one. CeeDee Lamb, you gave a shout out. I agree with that. As far as next players who could be on this list in the future, you mentioned Puka Nacua. That was my choice. Who's your choice? You mentioned a lot of other players, but is there anyone else you would want to mention future best receiver in the NFL?
I think a lot of the guy, like the last year's crop, right? I think Malik Neighbors would be in that conversation. I think maybe we'll see this year, but like a beef-caked up Marvin Harrison Jr. might still be in that conversation. We'll see what the David Boston offseason workout plan of just piling on muscle is going to do for him. But Brian Thomas Jr., I think, based off last season, looked potentially special. The size, speed, explosiveness that he brings to the table is like, it's a different type of stuff, but it's like, it's in the AJ Brown world of like, there's no DB that can go with that. Like, he's bigger, he's faster, he's more explosive than you are. And that's immediately difficult to cover, even if he isn't any good at running routes, and he is. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.